episode number 326 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's show, a 787 is damaged as an engine collides with a jet bridge. Wizz Air announced they are taking legal action against Ryanair over the Buzz brand, and there's a new radio station launched especially for cabin crew. In the military this week, Boris Johnson's newly painted aircraft is employed in an operational role, and an Afghan Air Force A-29 is confirmed to have crashed in the northeast part of the country. And in this week's Plain Truths, Matt talks to Captain Al all about how aircraft are powered on the ground and in the air aside from their own engines. So joining me this week on the PTUK team in the studio, in the master PTUK studios, it is, of course, the legend that is Matt Smith.
I mean, who'd have thought we'd ever end up in a situation where we have two studios? I mean, come on, what the heck? It's not on, is it?
So how are things over in the stormy side of the village at the moment then, Matt?
Well, given that I'm not even half a mile away from you. But yes, absolutely, yeah. It's a bit funny weather-wise here today, isn't it?
It has been rather interesting.
Yeah, it's done nothing but rain here. I'm getting really bored of it now. Do you remember those 3 weeks where it was sunny?
Yeah, the 3 weeks where the grass had gone from kind of nice green to a parched, yellowy
brown.
Yeah. And it's now green again.
Yes, absolutely. Won't last, but there we are. Anyway.
And also joining us this week,
that killed the mood, didn't it? Sorry.
Joining us this week from his stately mansion across in the glorious Buckinghamshire countryside is, of course, the absolute fantastic guy himself, legend of BA. It's Neville Bounds.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. It's been an interesting week. I've had a haircut, or more of a project review, I would call it, actually.
Oh, wow.
The amount of stuff that was going on there.
Went in for an estimate, did you? Yeah.
That's right. And they were surprised when I turned up with the mess. So it took slightly longer than normal, but that was all good. And then I went up to Cambridge to do some filming with the A320 podcast fellas in the A320 simulator at Cambridge, as I said. So that was good fun.
Is that anywhere near Marshall's?
It's on the same site as Marshall's, yes.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
It is. So that was good. Good laugh. Good to see the guys again. And look forward to seeing them again soon. So, yes, I packed a lot in this week.
Busy times.
And joining us this week, he's back. We always miss him when he's not here. It is obviously the best part of the show. It's, of course, Armando.
Oh, I don't know about that, Carlos, but hi, everybody. It's always good to be back in my studio.
Yeah, absolutely. In the regional office in Charlotte.
Regional office.
Yeah.
That's what we should call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, it was a great week since last week's show. Man, I've been flying a lot, but flew about 50 hours worth for work, and then flew skydivers on Sunday. So our hours got reduced a little bit at work. I think I mentioned that. So I am now back to flying skydivers every weekend. So I'll be doing that every Sunday. It'll be kind of fun. It's two totally different
forecast. I should say the forecast is good for tomorrow for that.
That's a tomorrow problem.
Worry about that tomorrow, eh? Yeah, that sounds like good advice.
No storms and tornadoes outside the window today, then, Armando.
No, and even if they do, we kind of just fly around them, and we still go out to the airfield, or at least for skydiving. We go out to the airfield, and we all just kind of, stick our fingers in the air and say, what do you think? I don't know. Let's wait an hour. And then we just wait till there's a break in the clouds, and as long as you can spot the drop zone from basically the release point, then they'll jump. So
do you have to go for a bit of a, because obviously if the cloud is a bit questionable, I mean, how do you work out what the cloud base is? Where do you get that information from in order to know? Because obviously you're dropping from a certain height, and you need the jumpers need to be able to see the where the X marks the spot, essentially. I mean, how do you work out, when's okay?
Skydiving is a little bit different in that, there are a myriad of flight planning apps and websites. So as far as the weather and forecast, it's the usual suspects for flight planning, but they have additional apps and internet sources to find out the winds aloft at different levels, because they have to calculate sort of a trajectory, a ballistic trajectory, if you want to call it that, because when they when they drop out and they're free falling, they need to know what the winds are doing up at altitude, which may be completely different than what it's doing on the surface. So we kind of just average it out and figure out, okay, we're going to drop about a quarter mile southeast of the drop zone. And then they're going to sort of let the wind carry them into the right spot where they're going to pull their chutes. And then from there, they're basically flying down. And now you need to worry about what the surface winds, because just like an airplane, they are going to try to land into the wind. So it's just a little bit extra calculations, but to really answer your question, Matt, it's if there's a break in the clouds, there's a hole that they can jump through, they're going to do it.
They're going to do it. Okay, fair enough. And a very important question, because obviously this is an aviation show at the end of the day. What aircraft, Richard Adams is asking?
I am doing it in a Cessna 182 that is modified with a jump door and a step platform. And I think here pretty soon, hopefully, I'm going to get down to Steph's drop zone and try to take a stab at the Kodiak and see if those guys will take me on. So.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, actually, Carlos, while we're talking about sort of flight and air shows and all that kind of thing, of course, we're off to one next week, aren't we? Which I'm so excited about. I can't believe we're actually going to an air show.
Yeah, next weekend, me and Matt are off to the Shuttleworth drive-in air show, which is not too far from us. It's only just under 2 hours.
2.5 hours, isn't it? I think
2.5 hours. And they've got a drive-in air show next weekend, which me and Matt are in attendance at. It's going to be different because, as I said, it's a drive-in air show, and the gates open at 3 p.m. for that there, and it's a ticketed entry only, and you have to pre-buy those tickets online, which me and Matt have done. So we'll be there next weekend with the kind of mobile broadcast unit, but the difference being we're not going to be broadcasting the air show live, but we will be getting loads of great footage from the air show to play out on the show.
So, again, it's one of those, because one of the main reasons that it attracted us to it was the fact because this is going to be very different, because nobody really knows how air shows are going to work in these slightly unusual times, and the rules are very, very strict. So normally I would be saying, if you're down, do come and see us, but I genuinely don't know what's going to be permitted at the moment in terms of coming to see us. I mean, needless to say, we will definitely be there, and I guess as long as everybody is socially distancing, and things like that, then
you can shout at us.
You can sort of shout at us or give us a ring or something.
Yeah, call us.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure
send us a WhatsApp.
We'll make sure we've got the WhatsApp phone with us, and then we can sort of talk to people like that. But it's going to be really good to see an air show, isn't it?
So a quick date and time check. It's the 10th of July. Time's just coming up to 7:10. Big hello to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. We've got loads of people in there. Quick mention to everyone. Mash is in there. Auntie Liz, Graham Haley, Richard Adams is in there. We've got Sir Hingle McCringleberry in there as well this week. Hello to you. We've got Alan Loveday. Awesome. Hello, Alan. Stephen H. Hello to you, Stephen. We've got Shuttlepod 1. Hello to you, Shuttlepod 1. Nice to see you in there.
Masha says we need a sunroof for our show.
We need a sunroof.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think the C-Max has got a sunroof, has it?
No. But I will be taking at least one brolly.
Oh, good.
Just in case.
Absolutely, yes.
But at the moment, the 10-day forecast is actually looking okay for next Saturday. So,
okay.
Fingers crossed, everyone.
Can I have that in writing
fingers crossed.
Well?
I'm going to print it out. and laminate it.
Right. Yeah. What, in case it rains? Yeah.
In case it rains. Yeah. So, actually, on the subject of aviation, still, don't forget. As we mentioned in last week's show, we've got that all-important competition to win that £150 voucher to spend in the Plane Reclaimers shop, which Andrew very kindly donated when he was on the show a few weeks back on episode 324. So all you've got to do to be in with a chance of being drawn out of the hat for the draw will be, well, just to send us in a piece of feedback, something that we can play out on the show. And the theme is aviation in my life. So any feedback, written, audio, visual will do. And you'll be entered into the draw to win that £150 voucher to use on the store. And let me just say, there is some awesome stuff to buy on that store. But if you want to buy an overhead or an overwing exit sign, they have sold out this week.
Oh, have they? Oh dear. Nev, what are you up to next week? Up to anything exciting?
Oh, next week I am, from Sunday, I'm taking a long drive actually, to the northwest of England, Lake District. And then, as Auntie Nicola says that we can go to Scotland on 15th of July, we are going there. So we're going off to the Isle of Skye, right up into the Trossachs, Mrs.
I beg your pardon.
Yes,
what she said.
and coming back via Leith, just outside of the eastern part of Edinburgh. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. A road trip, if you like. So that'll be purely for pleasure, and that'll be about a week's worth. So that's good.
Sounds
really looking
lovely.
forward to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sounds good. Right, Carlos, I suppose we better do some aviation-y stuff.
Yep, we're going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're all ready, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go. And this week's first news story is the fact that no one's noticed I haven't got my cap on this week. But anyway, this week's first news story is on the Simple Flying website. And actually, when we found this story this week, the video for this is amazing, honestly. And it'll be interesting to see what Armando thinks of this after I've finished reading this story. But as I said, this is on the Simple Flying website. And the headline, oops, TUI Boeing 787 damaged as engine collides with jet bridge. So a TUI Boeing 787 Dreamliner destined for Curaçao was damaged in an incident at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport on Thursday. The aircraft appears to have been pulled too far, causing the nacelle of the left engine to collide with the Gates air bridge. Understandably, things can get a little bit rusty when returning to work after a long hiatus or a lull in activities. As traffic begins to pick up at Schiphol Airport and the first charter flights are once more taking off across the Atlantic to the Dutch overseas territories, surely ground crew are busier than in the past few months. However, one eager little tow truck overshooting of the mark turned out to be a costly affair. On Thursday, the 787 Dreamliner was being towed to its gate from where it was to fly to Curaçao for the first time since the pandemic put in, thank you, an abrupt halt to leisure back in March. Unfortunately, the particular aircraft will have to wait a little bit longer. While a spokesperson for TUI told Simple Flying, told Simple Flying the cause of the incident is still under investigation. Footage shows the 787 in question being pulled into its gate, literally, while there is no direct line of sight to the collision. There is a loud bang. The Avio bridge wobbles and the plane comes to an abrupt halt. The photo, which Matt might pop up on the screen, shows after the incident, which clearly shows a substantial dent in the engine's nacelle, the aerodynamically shaped housing that encapsulates the engine. TUI is reportedly able to exchange the aircraft for another 787. Thus, the incident resulted in no more than an hour's delay for passengers. However, the TUI spokesperson said that the extent of the damage is still under assessment. TUI Netherlands operates 3 Boeing 787-8s that are cheekily registered as Papa Hotel Tango Foxtrot Kilo and Lima and Mike. Whether that's a nod of respect or challenge for its compatriot, as in KLM, the Dutch flag carrier, is hard to say. The company's Dreamliners are on lease since they joined the fleet in October 2015. According to Plane Spotters, the entire TUI group has 19 Dreamliners in the fleet, most of which have been parked since the outbreak of the pandemic. And the leisure travel giant has not fared so well in 2020. Again, although, mind you, who has, to be fair? So it's safe to say it had a ding. I've watched that video a number of times. If you listen to the audio in the video, there's quite a nice.
Oh, is there some
noise
audio
at the
on
end?
Is there? Oh, right.
There is. Yeah, you have to have it. You have to have it quite turned up quite loud, but there is quite a nice bang as it strikes the air bridge.
I've watched it a number of times now. Do you not think? And I realise that it's a difficult thing to call because of the perspective of where the camera is. But don't you think that was coming into the gate a little bit fast?
No reason for that. No reason for it to come in that fast.
No.
Yeah, Matt's showing the video again.
I thought it was at times 2 normal speed. But then you look at the people on the ground and they are at normal speed. So, yeah, I think that could have been done slower. personally.
It's certainly...
You hear that noise, it just sounds expensive, doesn't it?
I mean, Armando, you've worked a kind of ramp stuff before. I mean, your thoughts?
Well, so in this slowdown, I guess everybody gets rusty, including the ground crews, and everybody's eager to get back to work. And some of the daily procedures may have gone a little bit out the window. But yeah, so this airplane was probably coming in from storage. And oh my gosh, how many times have we said it? If you just had a wing walker that was, and now this was coming in pretty fast. So yeah, they'd have to be a wing runner instead of a wing walker. but if you just had a wing runner or somebody just stationed, just even look at, there was two people in yellow jackets
on one
that
side.
They were both on the same side. Unbelievable. What a preventable incident. But you know what? Guess it won't happen again.
Well, no, indeed. Actually,
not to those guys.
Not to those. Yeah, I can say Richard Adams agrees with you, Nev, saying that actually it looked quite fast. It does. Did as you say, you sort of think is this on double speed or something? The way it was coming in.
It was. I thought it was at least 1.5 times normal speed when I saw it, but then I realised it wasn't.
Well, no.
But isn't the guy in the tug facing? I mean, he's facing towards the aircraft.
Sometimes there's two people in there, but he or she may have just been following the line and taking it. So it could have been that the jet bridge was out of position because those are gates that are used for multiple aircraft. And I did find it kind of interesting that there was two jet bridges
so close together.
Gate. Yeah, so close together. So I think one of them may have been out of position because they're just focused on the line on the ground that says 787 and may have not even noticed that, oh, by the way, we haven't moved that other jet bridge from its storage position or something like that. Just a silly incident.
I mean, hopefully more information yet to come then, essentially, to sort of fill in the gaps then. Perhaps that, perhaps you're right, perhaps it's because it could be something as simple as the air bridge being in the wrong place.
And can I just say, Matt, that won't just buff out.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm glad you cleared that up. Anyway, we'll move on to the next story. This is it's sort of Ryanair story with a slight twist on this. So Wizz Air takes legal action against Ryanair over the Buzz brand. So Europe's two low-cost giants, Ryanair and Wizz Air, are in an open conflict over Buzz, a subsidiary of Ryanair Group. Wizz Air previously filed a lawsuit against Ryanair to block its rival low-cost carrier from using the Buzz brand. The Hungarian low-cost carrier alleges that Buzz brand is very similar to its own name, Wizz Air. You'll notice I'm trying to be very careful here because I could get so many words wrong here if I'm not careful. Ryanair said that it would appeal against the Hungarian court's interim injunction blocking Buzz, a subsidiary of the Ryanair Group, from using its Buzz brand in Hungary. The decision to suspend Buzz's operations in the Hungarian market has been taken at the request of rival carrier Wizz Air. It is clear that Wizz Air is terrified of Buzz's lower fare competition, which is why they are trying to block Buzz using its Buzz brand in Hungary, where Wizz are cutting aircraft and capacity in Budapest. They should stop wasting time with lawyers and start focusing their energy on reducing their costs to rival lower cost Buzz, Ryanair's chief executive Michael O'Leary said in a press release. We look forward to overturning the silly injunction on appeal, and we will continue to focus on Buzz's expansion in Hungary. Those that can compete and those who can't, like Wizz, run to the court seeking injunctions to protect them, continued O'Leary. The Irish Ryanair Group alleges that Buzz brand had been in their portfolio for 17 years. According to the chief of Ryanair, the company will wait for a positive court decision and will continue to expand its presence in Hungary. So a little bit more information about Buzz. Buzz was previously a British low-cost airline operating flights within Europe from 2000 until 2003 as a subsidiary of the Dutch carrier KLM. The airline was acquired by Ryanair back in April 2003 and continued operations until flight operations ceased in September 2004. In March 2019, 2019, it was announced that Ryanair's Polish subsidiary Ryanair Sun would be rebranded as Buzz. It was reported that Ryanair aimed at reducing operating costs with rebranding. According to Ryanair's plans, Buzz would lease aircraft and crew from the parent company. Ryanair's Hungarian base was handed over to Buzz at the beginning of December last year, along with several other bases around Europe. Buzz is a Polish airline operating charter flights from its bases in Poland, Czech Republic and Bulgaria to popular holiday destinations. It is one of 5 airlines of the Ryanair Holdings Group, alongside Ryanair DAC, Ryanair UK, Malta Air and of course Laudamotion. So now I've got a little picture here that producer John has given me. So this is basically the 2 liveries. So here we are. These are the 2 liveries. Look. Now what do we think? Do we think they're a little bit too similar to each other?
They look so the same. I mean, look at the colours. The colours are the same. The font's the same. No, it's not, is it really?
So, I mean, what do we think's behind this then? I mean, what is our gut feeling? You know, does it look? Is it because it looks similar? Do you think it sounds similar?
They're upset because they're using 2 Zs.
Possibly, yeah. I think
I think the old Wow and Wizz would probably be closer than Buzz.
Oh, I mean, I quite often get the 2 mixed up. I mean, you know, many a time one of our pilot friends, you know, for a long time I thought they worked for Wow. And not Wizz Air, so you know it's sort of very easily done. I'm sorry, I should say this. It's a shame, guys. I don't know if in fact I'll probably get told off by our producer for doing this. Look, but because they know how bad I am at reading these stories, look, our producer John here had literally color coded all of the words there just to make sure that I got Wizz and Buzz all the way around. I'll tell you what, it goes to show, you know, that they obviously know me far too well, don't they, with this? But I don't know. I mean, so you know, what does the chat room think? What are they saying about this? We've got Graham here who's saying that I hope Buzz will be flying Air Buzzes. I quite. that's your style of humour there, Nev, I think.
Yes, I wish I'd have thought that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's where are we? So yeah. So
what do you reckon, Nev? Do you think it's just a case of they're just jealous?
I think there's very little similarity there, and I think that's just some opportunism, as tends to happen when there's some rivalry going on.
Indeed, actually, Masha is very much in agreement. Look, she's saying like nothing alike. It's quite funny, really, isn't it? I see Uncle Micah has just joined us in the chat room as well.
Hello, Micah.
Indeed.
So we'll just put Buzz in that same list as Swoop, Scat, June.
Yeah. Don't say that word. We'll lose Nev again. Although I quite like Richard Adams' comment here. He says scope for a third airline to perhaps become Wazz Airlines. there's a thought, everyone. What a treat. Anyway, thank you, chat room. Yeah,
thank you, chat room. Legendary as always. Next story, Nev, for you is sad news, I think.
Well, yes. I mean, we all love the 747, don't we? And this is on the Engadget website. And it says that if it wasn't already apparent that the era of big flying is ending, it might be soon. Bloomberg sources say that Boeing is ending production of its 747 jumbo jet, which is currently the 747-8 in about 2 years' time. A spokesman for the aircraft manufacturer didn't confirm or deny the shutdown, saying that there were more than 2 years of production left to fulfill orders. However, Bloomberg pointed to signs of a firm stop in subtle wording changes for financial statements. Whilst there's no claimed explanation for the move, it's no secret that Boeing faced both a hostile market and its own troubles. Even before the pandemic, the air travel industry had shifted towards smaller, more fuel-efficient twin engine jets like the 787 Dreamliner. The 15 remaining unfulfilled 747 orders are all destined for freighter use, with 12 of them headed to UPS. The Dash 8 was also late and over budget and is believed to have been a money loser since 2016. The last passenger order was for Air Force One in 2017. Even so, an end to 747 manufacturing would close a major chapter in aviation history. The 747 has been in service for over 50 years, entering service with Pan Am in January 1970. It was one of the most popular wide-bodied jets with about 1,571 orders, and its distinct upper deck hump made it instantly recognizable amongst travelers. The 747 will continue to fly for a while yet, but clearly the time is coming to an end. And Qantas of Australia, of course, is a very big operator of the 747 aircraft, and they're going to retire their aircraft, but they're doing some send-off flights. So the airline will send its only surviving 747 on a series of one-hour joy flights, departing Sydney, Brisbane and Canberra, so that fans can bid their farewell to Queen of the Skies. But it won't come cheap. Tickets are priced at $747 for business class and $400 for economy, in a nod to the Boeing 747-400 aircraft series. Very clever. Tickets go on sale at midday, Wednesday of this week, actually, for the Sydney flight on July the 13th, and Brisbane flights are on July the 15th, and Canberra is on July the 17th. So, yes, it's finally going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. It's big shame, isn't it? Big shame.
It is a big shame. I'm glad that that I had the opportunity to fly on the 747 the couple of times I did. One of those was with you.
Our trip back from Dubai with the BA fellas and girls. Yeah. I think that will be our last ever flight on the 747, won't it?
Yeah, it's a shame.
No question about it.
Well, I think even if they stop production, there's going to be a long life ahead for the 747. I think there was over 1,500 built, and probably close to 1,000 of them still in service, if not more than 1,000. So I think we'll still see them in the skies for a little while.
And they'll be keeping parts availability and service schedules going, won't they? So they'll be around for a while yet, certainly, I think, yeah.
So moving on to the next story, Armando, you've got some sad news for the next story.
It's sad in one way and a good story in another way. This is from Flying Magazine. Emily Warner, who marked many airline pilot firsts. She was the first woman captain for a scheduled U.S. airline. She passed away on July 3rd. When she bought her first ticket to fly on an airplane, a Douglas DC-3 flown by Frontier Airlines from Denver to Gunnison, Colorado, she thought she might be interested in becoming a stewardess. It was 1959, after all. After a second trip, her flight back to Denver, she was invited up to the cockpit by the pilots on that empty flight. And then she knew that she wanted to fly up front. She said, "I went forward into the cockpit. I was just floored at what I saw. It just grabbed me." They were just coming over the mountains. When she asked if a girl could take lessons, the affirmative answer took her to Clinton Aviation at Stapleton Airport, which is no longer there, by the way. I think the tower is still there. But, she would eventually become a flight instructor and a pilot examiner. She did pass away on July 3rd, 2020, having gone on to join in those pilot corps at Frontier Airlines in January of 1973, with her initial flight as a second officer on the Boeing 737. That year, Warner became the first woman to fly jets on a permanent basis for a U.S. airline, and the first American woman to ascend to the ranks of captain of a scheduled U.S. airline. But she hadn't been hired until after she had more than 7,000 hours in her logbook. Scores of male pilots she had recommended to Frontier, United, and Continental Airlines. The article goes on a little bit, but she had an amazing career and dozens of awards. She ended up flying for Continental Airlines, and her first uniform is actually on display at the National Air and Space Museum. She's in the National Aviation Hall of Fame, Women in Aviation International Pioneer Hall of Fame, and the National Women's Hall of Fame. So, clear skies and tailwinds to Miss Emily Warner.
Oh, what a career. And what an achievement.
Very memorable.
So, moving on to the next story. And this one, when I picked this up this week, I found it actually quite interesting, this story. This one is from the Wales Online. So it's across the other side of the UK from where me and Matt currently are. And this guy here is amazing, honestly. If you've ever wondered what it'd be like to own your own airport, this guy actually does. So Winston Thomas is an 82-year-old self-made millionaire from his work in engineering. Winston, he brought the airport back in 1994 and has spent £4.5 million transforming the former Royal Air Force Airport into a thriving facility that today offers private and commercial and charter flights. The runway on the actual site, 797 metres by 30 metres, and had a displacement of 40 metres on runway 04, according to the charts via NATS. He said that he had to clean a runway up when he first took over. It took 6 months pressure washing the runway. All the grooves in the runway had to be cleaned up. He got a specialist company in to paint the runway, which took 2.5 tons of paint, said Winston. The military has Winston's mobile phone number, so they can call him at any time, and the airport provides refueling and support services to all military and emergency services, including the Air Sea Rescue aircraft. The airport is on call 24/7, and there are just 6 people working there, including Winston. Pembrey Airport is just one of a handful of facilities in the UK that can offer certain military training, and exercises are carried out during the day and night. It's also semi-located that local residents are often unaware of these nighttime activities. Since 1997, nearly 10,000 military personnel have been trained at Pembrey. This includes Prince Harry, while he was training in Apache helicopters. Royal Highness, or His Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and Royal Highness Prince William have also used the airport, with Prince William using it during his time working with the rescue helicopters in North Wales. In 1998, the airport was officially opened, and in December 2010, the Isles of Scilly Skybus operated the first charter flight into the airport with a 16-seater aircraft. But a decade on from that, Winston has bigger plans to expand the capabilities of the airport and to try and get Ryanair to fly into the West Wales airport. Be interesting. He says his goal at Pembrey Airport is to provide commercial passenger services at the airport to service the whole of South Wales. He said, "I'm trying to get people involved and to see the potential, and have a lot of interest from financiers in Malaysia, India and Dubai," he said. Michael O'Leary, the Ryanair boss, who knows his business, has asked me to do an extension so he could fly to Pembrey. He said it's going to cost quite a bit of money, and he's done most of the work already. So he's dug topsoil down to 1 metre deep, put some clean stone down. The only thing left to do is lay concrete on the 350-metre extension. So with the 350-metre extension, that'll bring it in line with the London City Airport runway length as well. So what do you think, guys? Own your own airport? I mean, it has potential.
Well, it does, but I don't think I'd like to take a 737-800 off of that runway. And if you did, you're going by road, because with his runway extension, which brings it up to 1,147 metres, that's 3,763 feet, you might get an empty 737 off the deck, but not even a half full one, I wouldn't have thought. So I'm sorry to dampen people's spirits, but some realism surely has to come into play here somewhere. But that said, it's an ambitious thing, isn't it?
It certainly is.
I mean, it's sort of kind of exciting in lots of ways. I mean, let's be honest. Any entrepreneur, you're only as good as your next idea, aren't you? And if you've got that passion and drive, I mean, who knows what's achievable, isn't it? I mean, because let's be honest, there is no really easy link airport-wise directly into Wales. I mean, so maybe this is the answer. If somebody's willing to invest, then all it does take is someone like Ryanair putting regular flights into and out of it, and suddenly you have a successful airport.
Actually, he does say, if you read the video, watch the video that came with that story, Matt will put the links in the show notes as usual, but there's also part of that story where he says in the video that the runway itself, because it was built by the Royal Air Force, it is a pretty well-built runway that can carry, I think he said 9 tons?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say, as Never sort of said, I think it certainly do with a little light resurfacing, however. Much work is required, I think. Armando, you look like you were about to say something.
Well, I was going to agree with Nev that I think 4,000 feet is a bit short for really anything other than a small airliner going in there. But there are plenty of those. There are plenty of small air carriers that could probably go into a 4,000-foot runway. I know there is a long history, both in Europe and here in the US, of former military bases becoming commercial airports. In fact, I think that is probably one of the preferred methods to divest of a military airfield, is to sell it off and make it a commercial airport. I think some of the drawings that are on the Wales Online website, the conceptualized drawings, are very, very ambitious. I mean, it does show a couple of 737s and I think even a 747 parked at the gate there. So we'll see how that works out for them. But I think it would make a fantastic general aviation airport. And as far as a military training field, it is a great military training field. We're going to talk about Pembrey a little bit later. Wales is very, very popular for military training because of the terrain out there. So if you had an airfield that you could use as an objective, a training objective, I think he could make a lot of money off of that. And especially if he provides fuel services, as he is refueling the Chinooks there in the pictures, I think it could be a lucrative venture, just perhaps a little bit too ambitious for the 747-400 that's parked at the gate in his drawings.
You never know, though. Never say never. That's what they should always say.
A lovely part of the country, nevertheless.
It is, absolutely.
It is a beautiful part of the country.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, that was my favorite flights. The Lake District was great when we were doing day, low level, but Wales is just beautiful and great training terrain there.
Definitely.
So the next story, moving on to Matt. Now,
yes.
As many of the listeners will know, Matt in the past has dabbled in radio.
Very much so. And
broadcasting.
Yeah, well, and the slightly scary thing of this here is, like, I never ever thought in a million years that... So this website I'm reading from is a website that I read almost daily because I'm a massive radio nut, as many of you well know. I dare say it's something even Nev is aware of, and it's a website called Radio Today. And I was thumbing through that, as I do virtually every morning, trying to find out what terrible things are going to happen to the wonderful radio industry that I love today. And for example, like here, we're about to lose, Radio Norwich, Carlos. We're about to lose that. It's about to become a massive conglomerate now. It's about to be taken over by Greatest Hits Radio, yada, yada. Anyway, I was thumbing through that a couple of mornings ago, and I stumbled across a really rather fascinating article. And it's radiotoday.co.uk is the website. And the headline is, Radio Station Launched aimed at airline cabin crew, which is suitably exciting. So a new radio station exclusively for airline cabin crew around the world has been launched online. CCFM on air started during the coronavirus pandemic on the 25th, targeting 100,000 cabin crew and their aviation colleagues. The service is the brainchild of current serving stewardess Deborah Henley and the former purser with British Airways and radio veteran Del Wilden. They agreed that particularly during the coronavirus lockdown, the crew community needs each other more than ever. So Deborah said that the launch of the station, these are such worrying and lonely times for everyone, but particularly for airline staff who find themselves stuck at home depending on social media for daily contact when they would much rather be at work chatting to customers and colleagues. I have long believed that the cabin crew community needs their own radio station that is internet based, brings them closer together and talks their language. Now just seems the perfect time to launch, as so many people are worried about their job security. We will be advertising any new crew job opportunities first on our radio station. Deborah and Del have already enlisted the help of guest presenters and contributors, including former Heartbeat actress Tricia Penrose, Leo Jones, star of the popular EasyJet TV reality show Airline, Emma Kenny from ITV's This Morning family, and support team and local radio presenter Mark Johnson, Leo and Katrina from ITV's Airline are also on board. Del, currently a presenter on Radio Wirral, said that we have a strong and enthusiastic team working together, and I am certain CCFM on air will be welcomed by colleagues around the world. It's a great way of keeping in touch and sharing music, laughter and any anxieties delays or problems we may have. Although it's aimed at cabin crew primarily, of course, people from every part of the airline industry are welcome to join in, as we are one big aviation family. The launch of CCFM On Air is being privately funded, but they are looking for sponsors, advertisers and partners to help them maintain the service. So there we are. You can probably just hear that slightly in the background there. I had set the actual website itself. I mean, it's just like any other online player. There we go. That's the website itself. And I must admit, both myself and producer John had been listening to this during the week, and I have to say, it's as these things go, it's not a bad radio station. It has to be said. Carlos, you'd love it. It plays all sorts of things. I've
had it on actually today, Matt.
Have
you?
Very
good.
Yeah. It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But there we are. I've never ever thought in a million years that I would actually be reading a story from the Radio Today website about aviation. So I'm suitably excited.
It is a great idea. What a brilliant idea, though, especially for crews.
Also, I'm going to be completely selfish here as well. If you are a massive radio nut like me, then I strongly recommend you listen to their podcast. It is a fantastic listen. That's the radiotoday.co.uk. Anyway, enough plugging. I'll shut up now. I'll go and have a lie down.
Moving on to next story number 7 this week. Nev and complaining going on here.
Oh dear! When you're complaining about something, I think you've got to take a certain tone. And I don't think this person has particularly. My own view, anyway, it is on the onemileataTime.com website, and it's about Singapore Airlines. And the question is, what are reasonable expectations to have when flying during the coronavirus pandemic? A reader pointed out a complaint posted on Singapore Airlines Facebook page expressing frustration over a flight he described as daylight robbery. It does raise the question of what expectations customers should have. So whilst you can go to the Singapore Airlines Facebook page to read the whole complaint, which is substantial, let me say.
Is it?
Let's just have a look at the summary of what happened here. So this involved a passenger travelling on June the 20th, flying on SQ324 from Singapore to Amsterdam. The traveller is a solitaire PPS club member, which is Singapore Airlines top status. He was in business class, a ticket which he claimed he paid $7,000 for, presumably Singapore dollars, which is just over $5,000. So what made the travel experience so terrible? Well, first, there was no champagne in business class. So the complaint is no champagne aboard business cabin. How then is my cabin different from economy? You have one red wine, one white wine, tiger beer on board for business flights. Then it was to minimise contact between the crew and passengers. There was no drink service before the meal. So he goes on about the fact there's no drink service before the meal, and he says that I understand that Singapore wants to do a one-tray service, so reduce your prices for business class. Why can't there be a graciousness in the new normal? Your cabin staff did not even offer an extra drink. I had to ask for it. I don't think this is worth a regular business flight price. The passenger then didn't like being treated like a potential infectious customer by staff. I did not appreciate that on principle I was treated like a potential infectious customer by your staff. If cabin staff are so afraid to serve, Singapore should not start their flights until there is a vaccine. And then there was no offer of coffee or tea upon the tray service. How can you charge me $7,000 for my seat? Anyway, he's really harping on about the additional drink service and champagne by saying a business class flight should at least have a drink service. And here the champagne is very important to make a difference between economy and business cabin, and a post-dinner drink. The breakfast was the same. I won't go into more details. As if we haven't had enough already. By the way, did we not mention that he doesn't like his champagne being cut? I have other concerns about the lounge. No first class for solitaire PPSs. This is tolerable, but no champagne again in the business lounge. This is ridiculous. It goes on and on and on. It is an enormous article. There'll be it in the show notes. The one thing I would say about it, straight away, I've only flown on Singapore a couple of times, to Singapore from Heathrow and on to Melbourne and Sydney. I find the cabin crew, particularly on Singapore, an absolute delight to fly with. I cannot believe that there was the kind of attitude that he's mentioning here on any Singapore Airlines flight.
So I completely agree with you, Nev, in so many ways. But I mean, let's throw this out to the chat room here. I mean, so in some respects, all right, okay, the tone is appalling. Don't get me wrong, and as you say, I mean, it's not the crew's fault. But I mean, I know certainly from your experience, obviously, which we played out last week when you took your little flight to Edinburgh. Of course, when you would normally be in seat 1A, obviously, you are used to different. A different standard, if you like, in comparison to what I always refer to as castle class. So I completely get that there is an issue as far as service and things is concerned. But I don't know if I agree with the fact that they're saying that there's, what's the difference between being in cattle class and business? Well, surely the seat, the very, very comfortable lie flat bed seat, is a massive difference to what everybody's experiencing cattle class. I mean, there are problems, aren't there, with, let's be honest, we really don't know what the outcome of all this virus stuff is going to be, and I mean, I'm sure I was reading sort of articles this week that cause me great concern, where they think there is a possibility that said virus could now possibly be transmitted through the air. It isn't like sort of, so there's still so much we don't know about this virus. So, I mean, is it? I mean, he's obviously gone off on one, hasn't he? But
slightly, yes. I think he may not have over-exaggerated anything. It may all be perfectly true, but I think he has failed in the delivery there somewhat. And I think under the circumstances, we're just going to have to all get along together a little bit better, at least for a while, because I think the airlines, in my experience, as from what I saw last week, and this was only with BA, short haul and Heathrow, I realise, but they are doing their absolute utmost to do their very best for passengers and customers generally. And as I say, from my experience of flying Singapore, I'm really surprised to have heard that, I must say.
Yeah. Now, actually, we do have cabin crew in the chat room at the moment. So, hello, Owen, and he's just been telling everyone in the chat room as I was thumbing through, actually, saying that he's just actually done his first flight in a long time today, and he's saying having just gotten off a flight as crew, and it's definitely very difficult to serve to the same standards with the regs that our company have put on us. And I mean, and this is the thing here, isn't it? I think it's all about perspective, isn't it? But does he have a point, though, in the fact that, the ticket price maybe should be lower because you're not getting that same level of service? I mean, what do we think?
Well, maybe, but I think presumably, I mean, it's not actually a showstopper, is it? Let's be honest. No, he probably hasn't received the service he's paid for. You could say that. But really, I mean, I think we just need a bit of perspective on all this. I didn't get my nice hot breakfast on BA last week, but hey, it's one of those things. Yeah. I certainly didn't go into a rant over it, and I just thanked everybody very much for
absolutely. And to be fair, on Twitter there was a lovely amount of feedback coming back from the staff at BA as well, thanking you for it's nice to.
I get Owen's point. I think it is going to be very difficult for crews to adapt to new situations. There's no question. We've never had this kind of situation before, and so there are going to be circumstances where the passenger is inconvenienced or doesn't receive the service he's paid for, maybe.
Yeah, I have a side point of order that is related to this. So as you guys know, I commute to work. I have been trying to not take an airplane, so as to avoid my personal exposure as much as I can, especially because my regular commute is on American Airlines, and American, as we talked about last week, are back to full capacity as of July 1st. Well, American is not providing any cabin service whatsoever. So you're supposed to sort of bring your food on and whatever. Yesterday, I flew home on a different airline, and they served us a single baggie to everyone, whether you were in first class, cabin extra, or in economy. And it had a water, some chocolate-covered pretzels, some Cheez-Its, a single-use hand sanitizer, and a napkin, and a card that says, "Thank you for your patience. We're all working through it." However, this is one of the airlines that requires face coverings. So everyone, in order to board, they are required to have a face covering. Yet they served this little baggie to everyone, meaning everyone on the airplane took off their face covering at the exact same time. And then I was a little bit perplexed as to where we're going with it, because now literally everybody just took their face covering off. So I don't, there's a lot of weirdness in the industry. Everybody's trying to figure out. So I agree with most everybody. Like, his delivery on this was a little bit weird, but man, you got to have some perspective. Like, it's a weird time, and like Nev said, cabin crews are doing their best within company policies to provide a comfortable service. But what do we always say is their primary purpose to be on the airplane?
Safety, 100%. Yeah.
It's for your safety.
Absolutely. Nick Codling's got a good point. He says Singapore Airlines is the best airline that I've ever flown on. The best customer service in the industry, very much echoing Nev's points here. He said there's a pandemic on, there's a pandemic on, Mister. Stop being and I won't say that word. But yeah, there's a lot to be said for this, isn't it? I mean, we could go on and on, I guess, but yeah, it's I don't know. Again, Liz is saying that I believe all businesses are investing a lot of money in making changes to handle the pandemic. I think many are actually raising prices in general, which is again a good point. But I mean, if he's well, then I guess he just doesn't fly again, does he? I mean, it's as simple as that. If you know,
one of the things that me and John were talking about, Matt, during the week about this story is the fact that when you pay a premium price for a first class or business class product like that, for me, and I'm pretty sure that most of the people would think probably the same, we're not just focusing on what particular grade of food or what food, drink, blah blah blah, we're going to get. You're paying that premium to have the quality of service, but not only that, but also the lie flat seat, the lie flat bed,
the space, and it's more about that for me personally.
It's more about that. That's why you're paying the premium. You're paying that premium to travel in that level of service.
Yeah,
things are a lot better than they are in economy.
No, and that is true. Anyway, thanks for that, Nev. Great story. That Armando, if you could rattle on with the next one, I'd be most grateful.
Okay, this I actually changed the source. Sorry, Matt, don't have a heart attack. It's okay. It's just a little bit updated. So Mexican. You stick with the pictures there, because those
I'll go and press those buttons. You carry on. Don't mind me.
They're still good, and they are impressive. So Mexican military officials have found a smuggler's plane ablaze on a jungle road after it made an illegal landing when military aircraft started following it. The jet, which is suspected of carrying hundreds of kilos of drugs, was discovered in flames on the Yucatan Peninsula. Video posted by top Quintana Roo state police official showed smoke billowing from the jet as it sat on a rural two-lane highway. The Defense Department of Mexico said the plane had arrived from South America and had been tracked since it entered Mexican airspace. According to the department, 2 Air Force planes were dispatched to trail the jet, and troops were flown to the landing site. The local press reported that because the aircraft had been detected by the armed forces mid-flight, the crew would have landed and burned the plane in order to escape. However, local authorities have not confirmed that report. It is unclear whether the plane made an emergency landing and then burst into flames, or whether the traffickers purposely set it on fire. Further down the road, headed towards a neighboring state of Yucatan, troops found a pickup truck loaded with 13 sacks of cocaine, weighing a total of about 850 pounds, with an estimated street value of more than $4.9 million. The loss would have a significant impact on criminal organizations, said a statement from the Mexican military. Broadcaster Milenio, which showed footage of the plane about half burnt out on the highway surrounded by dense vegetation, reported that the plane had arrived from Maracaibo in Venezuela. Reuters could not verify the information, and the Venezuelan government did not immediately reply to a request for comment. No arrests have been made quite yet. There you go. So it took me a while to figure out what this airplane was. And if I'm going to float it to the chat room real quick, if anybody can guess at what kind of airplane it is. At first, I thought it was a Falcon 20. I'll give that as a hint, but it is not a Falcon 20. So I'm going to be very judicious in what I say here because I used to work counter drug. I did counter drug operations in South America and Central America for 5 years. This is a cat and mouse game that has gone on for probably 40 years, if not more than that. These pilots are amazing pilots, and they are able to do some amazing things with airplanes. Usually, as seen in the Tom Cruise movie, American Made, you're talking about some light twin aircraft, some Cessna 400 series, some Cessna 300 series, maybe some light general aviation aircraft. This particular aircraft was a very expensive business jet. It was the size of a Falcon 20. And I don't see any guesses in the chat room quite yet, but it's a BAE 125, which is the precursor to the Hawker 800. This is a $15 million jet. And to be using this as a drug runner is pretty impressive, and probably their tactic, because this would go under the radar, so to speak. Yeah, so looks like a pretty straight stretch of highway. If it was being tailed by military aircraft already, by Mexican Air Force aircraft, they are not shy in taking down an airplane because there's a whole lot of jungle that could land in and not hurt anybody. So my personal guess and personal experience is that it is highly likely that these pilots said, okay, time to bail on this operation. We're going to put it down on a highway.
Bye-bye now.
We're going to open the door, set the match on fire, and we're going to run into the jungle. Hopefully somebody's waiting for us.
Indeed. And again,
just reading Richard Adams' comment.
Yeah, Richard Adams is saying fire crews probably floated home on that particular job. Probably a good point. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, can you imagine?
Yes, that's the problem. Carlos, story number 9, please, before we end up in court.
Actually, I was going to say that me and Gemma went to the cinema and watched American Made, and it being an aviation kind of film, Gemma loved it. Just going to say that. Anyway,
whatever.
Moving on to
that's because
of
Tom Cruise
in it. That's the reason why she liked it.
Tom Cruise,
nothing to do with
not
the
the
aeroplanes. Yeah, absolutely.
Well.
Yeah.
So, have you ever wondered, this next story, what it would be like to...
No, I haven't,
Thank
mate.
you, Matt.
Yeah. So...
Turn his mic down, come on. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to draw or to glide through an airport in a self-driving wheelchair? So, the next story is on aerotime.aero / lots of stuff. The link will be in the show notes, trust me. And this... is all about JAL introducing autonomous mobility services at Haneda Airport. So Japan Airlines launched the world's first autonomous driving mobility service for elderly and disabled passengers at Haneda Airport on the 1st of July. The self-driving vehicle can bring passengers to their destination while sensing the pedestrians around the way. There's no need for staff to push the wheelchair, which helps to ensure social distancing as well under the current pandemic situation. The Japanese manufacturer WHILL, or WHILL, specialized in manufacturing personal electric vehicles, developed the autonomous motor used in this service. They set up a standby place named WHILL Station near security checkpoint B of Haneda Airport with 3 autonomous vehicles in use. Passengers can put their luggage on the rack behind the motor, fasten the safety belt, and after sitting, then enter a destination of a terminal of choice, and the vehicle will move automatically to take the passenger to the destination. Upon arrival, it will automatically return the WHILL to the station, so there is no need for passengers to bring it back. The service is completely free of charge. Terminal 1 of Haneda Airport that JAL is using is about 800 meters long, and there are many passengers in need of wheelchairs. God, they should try and fly Ryanair from Stansted then. JAL has been promoting measures to upgrade airport services with a theme called JAL Smart Airport, including using the latest technology to shorten the waiting time and make the stay more worthwhile at an airport. The introduction of the autonomous vehicle is also one of the relevant measures. Now, Matt, you played the video, or you got the little picture on the screen, I should say, there of these autonomous wheelchairs. I must say, I'd like to fake. Well, actually, I wouldn't need to fake an injury at the moment because I have, but I'd like to have a try of one of these, I must say. And Matt's gone. But would you love to try one of these, Nev?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a superb job, doesn't it? Yeah.
I mean, it's going to cut down obviously the walking distance from kind of security to the terminal, to the gates.
Done a good job with that.
I mean, like I said, all jokes aside, it is a hell of a walk. If anyone's ever flown, obviously Nev hasn't, but flown Ryanair from Stansted Airport, some of their gates are about 4,500 miles away.
Yeah, you can easily do your 10,000 steps, can't you? Just by going from the gate to the other end of the terminal. That's just Stansted. Some of the US airports are enormous, of course, and Dubai springs to mind as well as being one for keeping up your steps. So, yeah.
What do you reckon, Armando? This is going to take off in the US?
I don't know. I think we've already got the moving walkways. That's probably about as much real estate as we're going to give up for. I watched the most interesting thing about the airport design the other day, and there's a whole science to where they have you walk and which way terminals are curved in a certain direction, and they do psychological reports or studies because most people are right-handed, so they'll put some things on your left side, because naturally if you're toting your carry-on bag behind you with your right hand, your head will naturally tilt to the left. So I think introducing more electric vehicles where people are just going to walk by shops because that's how they're making their money is unlikely. Here in the US, we're going to probably keep people walking in a manner that's going to make them spend some money in the shops, especially the duty free and things like that. So I'm going to call probably not in the US.
So moving on to the last story in the news this week, and it's a nice story, I think, to end on this week.
Yes, and I'm very pleased to be able to read it as well. It's an absolutely brilliant story. It's on the foxnews.com website, and it says that a flight attendant's above and beyond actions resulted in a lasting friendship and a very meaningful graduation ceremony for a young boy with autism. Last year, Erica Connolly, a Southwest Airlines flight attendant, met Garrison Christie on a flight from Chicago to Dallas. Garrison, who is autistic, loves airplanes and wanted to share his passion with Connolly. I love planes also, and so I was excited to interact with him and let him tell me everything he wanted to share about flying that he loves so much. Once the plane landed, the pair reportedly went their separate ways, with Garrison heading back to his home in Keller, Texas. However, in a heartwarming turn of events, their friendship did not end there. Instead, Connolly sent a book on airplanes that had belonged to her dad, a former Air Force pilot and current American Airlines pilot, to Garrison's school, Central High School, along with a note. "I was your flight attendant. My dad is a pilot. We really love airplanes too. We found this old airplane guide and I thought you should have it," she said. Since then, the twosome have continued their bond, which has led to Garrison learning a lot more about planes, including getting a tour inside a Southwest flight simulator. Garrison's mum, Rennie Christie, said that her son not only carries the book she sent around with him everywhere, but it has also helped him improve his language and reading skills. Just a few minutes on a plane changed his life in getting this amazing friend, she said. And now Garrison, who is graduating from high school, wants to make sure his favorite friend is front and center. Before he even got to a family member, his first selection was Erica, she said, of Garrison choosing 5 people who are allowed to attend his graduation ceremony. "I think we all need a lot more Ericas in the world," she said. As far as her role in Garrison's life, she's happy to have made a positive impact. "I always try to be a little bit kinder than is necessary. I think if more people took that approach in life, the world would be a little bit of a better place," she said. And I could not agree with that more. It's not the first time, by the way, I've heard of this kind of thing. Some autistic children especially get a great deal from these sorts of experiences. I've got a colleague of mine actually in our industry that's got an autistic son. He gets a tremendous amount out of this kind of thing. So good on her. Really, really pleased to be able to read that story out.
It's just, and as you say, it's just one simple act of kindness, isn't it? And it literally has a change, in a person for life. Literally, one event can change so many things, isn't it? And it just seems like a very simple thing to the flight attendant, I'm quite sure. But as you say, literally, life changing for that young team, which is just, as you say, it's a lovely story to end the commercial news on, isn't it?
These Southwest cabin crew, honestly, Armando, they do go above and beyond, a lot of these guys and girls.
They really do. Southwest, with Herb Keller as the CEO from its inception, has always created that culture. That's why their trading stock symbol is love. That's why the hearts. They've just created that culture in their company. But Matt, like you said, real quick, it is a simple gesture for the crew. But I'd say one of the things that, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a negative, because it's not a negative, but just one of the limitations of this job, being either a pilot or crew, is that it's a bit impersonal. You get people onto airplanes, you get people off airplanes, and then you do a 45-minute turn, and 100 people come on, and then 100 people get off, and you just kind of, you yourself get used to just people getting on and off the airplanes, and you see 1,000 people a day. And occasionally there are interactions that really, really make a difference to the crew also, whether that's the pilots up front, the cabin crew, or the gate agents and the support personnel. I have this one young man. He is blind. Finn, if you're out there, if you're listening, and every time he asks for me by name, because I love just helping him into the airplane, and he loves flying our airplane, and does so regularly with his mom. And it makes my day. You could have the worst day possible, just fighting weather all day long, delays, maintenance, whatever. But you get an interaction like this, and it'll make your day, it'll make your week, it just rejuvenates the joy in this job when you have an interaction like this. So I'm sure she got just as much as he did out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also worth saying that I think all crew in general are like that, aren't they? I think certainly of my experience of cabin crew, they are a very unique species, and I mean that in the kindest and most awesome of ways, because they are, let's be honest, a lot of the time treated by, shall we say, the lower ends of life, perhaps not as well as they deserve. As I say, and I know it's not always possible for you to be able to go above and beyond for exactly the same reasons that Armando is saying there, but I think all crew would like to do something, if it was, possible to do so. So it's it's a great story, isn't it? Anyway, before John starts shouting in our ear, I think we need to move on, and it gives me great pleasure to announce part number 4 in our special series that I've been recording with the legend that is Captain Al. And this week we're talking about, for me personally, because as we know, I'm a bit of a dunce when it comes to this aviation malarkey. And this week we're learning all about APUs and GPUs. Hi there again, and welcome to another part of The Plain Truth. Joining me again is the awesome Captain Al. Hi, Captain Al.
Hi, Matt. How are things?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good. Still very warm here at the moment. It's doing. I don't know what it's like in. Whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm in the northwest of England, where it's quite muggy.
Is it? Right. Okay. Yeah. Thunderstorms and hail, no doubt.
Oh, well, anything's possible with this summer so far.
Good point, yes, yeah.
I'm just waiting for the locusts to arrive.
Right. Well, it's been a funny old year. I think that is anything, as you say, anything's possible at the moment. Now, regular listeners to the show will remember that I went on a little taster flight after Al had very kindly given me some fear of flying counselling, shall we say, because I was about to do some flying for work for the first time. And Owen, who's cabin crew, good friend of all of ours, took me on a flight, a test flight, to see how I got on. And one of the things that I remember most about our little flight to Toulouse was obviously being very nervous at that initial stage. And before we took off, suddenly the aircraft was all plunged into darkness, all the emergency lights came on, and basically poor Owen was having to sort of talk me off a ledge. Now, he mentioned that apparently that it was the GPU unit had basically been unplugged, and that's why the aircraft had all been plunged into darkness. But one of the other things that another acronym was that was thrown at me at a similar time was the APU. So what is the GPU and the APU, and what are the differences?
Okay, well, let's get the acronyms out of the way first. So GPU, Ground Power Unit, and APU, Auxiliary Power Unit.
Right.
So let's have a look at an aeroplane. So it's designed to be operating in the air with the engines running. So when it's on the ground with the engine stopped, it has batteries, of course, but those batteries aren't really capable of powering all of the systems, and they have no way of providing any air conditioning. So we need some way of powering the aircraft when the engines aren't running, which will be typically on the ground. So we usually use the auxiliary power unit, which is a small jet engine located usually in the tail of the aircraft. And when I say small, just a bit bigger than a suitcase, really, big suitcase size. Now, that little jet engine, and you will quite often see the exhaust for it coming out of the very rear of the tail of the aircraft, is able to do two things. It's able to provide electricity, and it's also able to produce air. Now that air, the pneumatic supply, is then able to drive the air conditioning units and provide heat if it's cold or cool air if it's hot, and also electrics to supply the aircraft. Now, that's great. But it's an engine, and therefore it requires fuel. And fuel is expensive. And also that auxiliary power unit makes a lot of noise. So where we can, we would like to utilize some cheaper form of power. And that is where the ground power unit comes in. Now, it can take the format of two particular styles. There'll be, let's just say, a big sort of like diesel generator on wheels, the size of a small van that can be towed around. Or it can actually be part of the air bridge, and it's just an umbilical cord that comes from the aircraft that then is plugged into it. So what we try to do is we try to use the ground power wherever possible, because A, it's cheaper, B, it makes less noise, and quite important these days, it's environmentally more favourable. Now, here's the thing. If we're sat on the aircraft at the gate and the ground power is connected, that sort of umbilical cord, and we remove that power, the only thing that is powering the aircraft at that time is the batteries. And, okay, they're reasonable sized batteries, but they're not huge. So the aeroplane has to dispense with non-essential services. So the cabin lights go out. And therefore, because by default we have a fault on the aircraft, the emergency lights will come on because the systems don't know exactly what's happened here. So by default, the emergency lights will come on when the power goes off. So in your particular case, what happened is that the ground crew disconnected the ground power before the auxiliary power unit had been started, and thereby plunging the aircraft into darkness. What is supposed to happen is the ground crew are supposed to knock on the side of the aeroplane and wait for the signal from the pilots to indicate that they may disconnect. Now, before any ground crew at any airports write in, phone in, or lynch me on the corner of the street, very occasionally the umbilical cord, the connector, can just drop out, especially if it's windy. So in your case, it may have been just an unintentional disconnection, or indeed the ground power unit might have, had a technical fault or run out of fuel. May not have been. a careless ground operative.
And I suppose
Now,
in defence of everyone, I mean, they didn't know that one of the people on that aircraft was having his first test of flight since he developed a fear of flying. So, I mean, the timing couldn't have been more wrong.
Indeed. Now, this takes me on to another little area, and that is the fact that when it's very, very hot or very, very cold, so I want you to imagine being in Seville in Spain in the middle of summer where the outside air temperature is sort of 43, 44 degrees.
Yes, please.
And the sun is beating down. And, of course, the aeroplane is just like a big greenhouse, really, isn't it, with all of those windows. So it can get very hot in the cabin. Now, one of the problems that we have is that a lot of airports prohibit the use of running the APU, that's the little jet engine at the back, for anything more than 5 minutes after arrival and no more than 5 minutes before departure. Now, I said to you that APU provides electric and air, pneumatic, which we can run the air conditioning. So, what do we do for air conditioning when it's very hot or very cold? Well, the good news, in some ways, is that airports are able to provide another form of umbilical cord, a big tube, that they pump conditioned air into the cabin. And this is what you're intended to use. Here's the small problem. Some airports maintain their air conditioning systems better than others. So as pilots, you can sometimes get stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's warm in the cabin, but not excessively so, but people would like it cooler. The airport have provided you with conditioned air. It is cooler than the ambient air, but not by much. And the fines for unlawfully, in inverted commas, running the APU can be in the tens of thousands of euros.
Wow.
Which the airlines don't like to pay.
No, I can imagine. Yeah.
So there are procedures to get dispensation from the airport. But as you can imagine, it's not that straightforward because it has to be passed up through several people.
So are some of those restrictions involving the ground power unit as well? Are there restrictions in place for running that?
No, there's no restrictions usually for the ground power unit because the ones on the air bridge are effectively silent. It's just part of the infrastructure of the airport. The diesel-powered ones, they're noisy, but not as noisy as a jet engine.
Right. Yeah. No. Well, that's.
And we have to have some form of electrical supply, if nothing else, on the ground, because the batteries will run flat after half an hour.
Gosh. Okay. So I mean, difficult for your scenario. I know because I know you haven't done a great deal of what I call low cost. Flying in your experience, but so if you've got an aircraft that's doing a short turnaround, say, I'll use Ryanair as an example, obviously. So it's landed, it's taken off at Stansted, it's gone to say Toulouse, and then it's going to go Toulouse back to Stansted. That bit when it gets to Toulouse, I mean, would it normally? I mean, because they're not on the ground for very long, are they? They're only there for about sort of probably 20-25 minutes, something like that. Yes. Obviously, they can't leave the APU running in that scenario, but would they plug into some kind of unit to keep the aircraft at a comfortable temperature?
Okay, so this is where it becomes a little bit more complicated. So
I'm so glad I asked.
So to avoid lawyers getting involved,
okay.
If we were to say an airline that operates on a low-cost model similar to Ryanair, but not Ryanair,
okay,
then everything associated with aviation comes at a cost. So the ground power you have to pay for. If you want ground air conditioning, you have to pay for it. If you want to air condition the cabin with the auxiliary power unit, the APU, that comes at a cost by virtue of the fuel that it needs to run. And also, it's a little engine, so it needs to be serviced, etc., etc. So there is a cost per minute for running it. So this is where you kind of fall into the category of you pay your money, you take your choice. So long as it is not dangerously hot in the cabin, an airline operating on a basis similar to Ryanair, but not Ryanair, may have a policy that says within this particular temperature regime, you do not pay for, additional air conditioning. It's hot, but it's safe. Other airlines that may operate on a full service basis that will look at it and go, well, these passengers have paid £500 for their trip to Toulouse or Seville. So we're going to, make them feel comfortable with an ISO of 20, 21 degrees. The choice becomes less relevant because there's more money in the pot. And I have to say that anything at the airport is expensive, not just as a passenger, but as an airline as well. Okay, so that ground air conditioning doesn't come cheap.
No,
whether it's good or not,
yes.
You don't get a refund. If they've plugged it in, you're paying for it.
Wow, Captain Al, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
If you want to take your knowledge to the next level, sign up for a subscription at the A320 Lounge. Our online video courses combine whiteboard-style lessons with full failure demonstrations shot in 4K in state-of-the-art simulators using a professional production team. Go into your next simulator session with confidence, having seen failures run in real time and with the background knowledge to answer any questions from your instructor. To get more information and to sign up, visit a320lounge.com.
And my thanks to Captain Al. I'm really enjoying this little series. I hope everyone else is too. It's some interesting stuff.
Yeah, very good.
I know a few people who are enjoying
your
this.
Dad, weirdly, for some reason,
loving the bloody segment.
Yeah.
Oh, you thought I'd given him an early Christmas present yesterday when Matt sent me the link for this particular segment this week, and so Dad had a preview of it.
Oh, did he? Spoiling him.
Yeah, loves it. He loves it. Absolutely loves it. But there are a lot of people. Also, Gareth as well. Hello to you, Gareth, because I know you listen to the show. He enjoys the segment as well. So,
actually, Steve
you
S.
always learn something, don't you?
You do, absolutely, yeah. Steve S, as I say, talking about what we were saying, Steve S. Aero was saying in the chat room here, and sometimes the ground handler will pull the GPU away without disconnecting it, and that can be very messy and expensive, which is true. So, thanks for the feedback on that. As I say, genuinely though, guys, if you have anything that you want answers to, please do either send them to us by WhatsApp, ping us an email, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. I've only got one more actually that's recorded, and I've got to sit down and have another recording session with Captain Al very soon. So if you're listening to this, Al, please do get in touch. And any ideas that you've got about things that you want answers to, now is the prime opportunity, and we'll get it on for you in the next few weeks. So podcast@planetalkinguk.com is where you need to go, or send us a WhatsApp. It's +44 757 22 49166. That's +44 757 22 49166, and we'll get that recorded and out as soon as possible.
So we're going to move on to the next part of the show where we hand things over to Armando. So over to you.
Everybody's favorite part, the military. Matt, if you're ready, hit the button. We are now well into the Japanese fifth generation fighter. Mitsubishi X2 Shinshin makes its first flight. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries successfully completed the maiden flight of an advanced technology stealth jet, the X2, previously known as the Mitsubishi ATDX Shinshin, on April 22nd, 2016. The fighter took to the skies as Japan joins a select group of world military powers that includes the United States, Russia, and China, capable of producing a manned radar-dodging jet plane. The inaugural flight had previously been postponed due to bad weather conditions and malfunctions of parts used in its emergency escape system. Last November, Japan had another landmark event when it successfully made the maiden flight in their first domestically produced passenger jet. The X2, also known as the Shinshin, or the Spirit of the Heart, took off from Nagoya Airport and performed a series of trials to test basic maneuvers as dozens of aviation enthusiasts at the event cheered on and watched the plane climb, descend, and circle above. The single-pilot prototype X-2, painted in the red and white colors of Japan, was flanked by 2 Japanese military fighters that were collecting flight data. It landed at Japan's Air Self-Defense Force Gifu Air Base with no particular problems. After completing the 25-minute maiden flight, the pilot from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries described the flight experience as extremely stable. Control of the aircraft went exactly as in our simulated training sessions. And after piloting the aircraft, I'm 100% positive the X-2 is magnificent and will meet the Ministry of Defense's requirements. So actually, kind of a preemptive apology. I'm reading this and I realized we've talked about this before. This article is actually from 2016. It is from April 23rd, 2016. I did not proofread it. I didn't do the military segment this week. We had some audience contributions, but there we go. Now we're going to call it a rehash of something that happened in 2016, 4 years ago, brought to you by your PTUK host, in case you didn't remember that the Shin made its maiden flight.
Is it just me, or has whoever designed this jet, did they just nick the back end off an F-35?
Well, I'm going to imagine that the collaboration was a little bit different than the Chinese stealth jet. We may have actually talked to the Japanese about this one, but what are you going to do? And, this VTOL sort of F-22, F-35 tail design, it's now in the Boeing TX trainer. So I wonder if there's something aerodynamically advantageous about this. I think the F-18 has it. So I'd be interested to get an aerospace engineer on and see if there's an advantage to this. But there you go. Brought to you, 4-year-old story brought to you by P2K.
It's a fascinating little craft, though, genuinely.
It's been ripped. Obviously, the back end's ripped off an F-35.
You keep saying that.
It so is.
I will say this story is sort of a precursor, because anytime an aircraft makes a first flight, it's pretty momentous, not just for the manufacturer, but usually for that country. And this is a little bit of a teaser. Hang on till the end of the show, because we're going to have something related to first flights next week.
Oh. There you are.
There we go.
There you go. I think I surprised Matt too.
Yes. What's going on? I'm very confused. Oh well, never mind. Nothing unusual there.
It'll be fine. Carlos, over to you.
Yes, over to me. Thank you, Armando. So the next story is on the Gloucestershire Live, or the GloucesterShireLive.co.uk website. And for those of you who are used to seeing aircraft landing on tarmac runways, this is slightly different. So, huge Airbus A400M Atlas plane makes spectacular landing on a beach. So this one's got a video. Matt's going to play the video out for you to watch. So it's a familiar sight over Gloucestershire, but not quite a commonplace on your local beach. This is the moment an A400M Atlas plane based at RAF Bryce Norton lands on the sand in Wales. The video was shared by the Royal Air Force, who said the plane was conducting natural surface operations. And safe to say, definitely natural surfaces is definitely the word for it. It successfully completed a beach landing at Penbury Sands in Wales, which is not far from the airfield we were talking about just earlier in the show with the guy who owns that airport. So the huge plane is the latest aircraft to join the Air Mobility Force at the base just across the border in Oxfordshire. It regularly flies missions across the UK and flies over Gloucestershire airspace. And the day before, it had flown to the vicinity of Teesside for essential training. Now, I'd have to say it's good that there wasn't no one on the beach sunbathing on this day. But during the height of the pandemic, the Royal Air Force
planned it. Yeah. I don't think they landed there on spec.
Actually, it says on the story that the Royal Air Force Atlas C1 or the A400M is one of the most frequent flyers over Gloucestershire and is used for transporting cargo and troops. A top speed of over 500 miles an hour, it can carry 37 tons over a distance of 2,000 nautical miles. Up to 40,000 feet in height. It can also land and take off from prepared airfields, small landing strips, and even beaches, as was proved with this story. Brize Norton is a key base for deployment of troops as well as cargo flights. Now, I have to say that I think that beach landing was, when you get that fairly heavily compacted sand that's slightly damp, it's more kind of harder, more robust than a kind of wispy, sandy kind of beach. I think they picked the correct beach, I should say, to land this on. I think if they'd have tried to have landed this on, say, Great Yarmouth Beach, Matt, they might have had a slight issue.
Yeah, the seagulls, for one. The damage to the aircraft will be unspeakable.
This is quite cool, Armando. I like this.
Yeah, this is it's not something that you practice regularly. So doing beach landings, as far as I know, there aren't very many places in the world that are approved for beach landing training. And Pembrey Sands, which sits about a quarter mile from the Pembrey International Airport, Pembrey, West Wales Airport that we just talked about in the commercial segment. So you can see the beach from the tower of that airport. Or if you're there at the Pembrey Racing Circuit, there's also a caravan park right between the airport and the beach. So somebody was getting a great show this day, but the U.S. Air Force has taken their C-130J models into this beach. It is no secret that I'm actually a huge fan of the A400, and that was from their demonstration at Farnborough. Oh my gosh, amazing airplane. So it's not something that you practice regularly. This is a pretty well-established beach landing area, training area. And what is not mentioned is there are specialized ground controllers that will go out and survey the sand, just like you're talking about, Carlos. In a combat environment, you would drop these individuals via parachute, via airdrop, or you can insert them via helicopter. They will conduct a survey of that landing area and deem it appropriate or adequate for something like an A400 or a C-130 to come in. Usually that's going to be under the cover of night. And you can do a sort of a beach invasion, call it, with a couple airplanes. Pretty impressive if anybody ever gets a chance to go out and watch it. Actually,
one of my standout moments from, I think it was it 2016, where they had the A400M and they also had an A380, didn't they? And they did a sort of like back-to-back sort of fly routine, which I still to this day, those two aircraft sort of flying one after the other were my standout moments from that air show. I'm going to miss that air show in that form a lot. Actually, it was some good memories were made at those two Farnboroughs that we went to.
So Armando, what's next?
Yeah, this kind of a late breaking story is from the war zone. An American pilot ejected from an Afghan Air Force A-29 light attack aircraft. So details remain limited on this one, but the Super Tucano aircraft crashed earlier today, reportedly with a U.S. pilot on board. Reports also say that this individual was injured after ejecting, but they have already been rescued. Their exact affiliation, such as whether they are a member of the U.S. military or a private contractor, is unclear, as is whether there was a member of the Afghan Air Force in the aircraft at the time of the accident. So the mishap, which is said to have been the result of a technical failure, occurred in the Doshi district of Afghanistan's northeast Baghlan province, approximately 11:30 a.m. This was yesterday, July 9th. The A-29 was assigned to the Kabul Air Wing, based at Hamid Karzai International Airport in the country's capital of Kabul. The single-engine turboprop Super Tucanos are Afghanistan's primary fixed-wing combat aircraft. Armed with two 50-caliber machine guns, they carry various types of ordnance, including laser-guided bombs on 4 hard points under the wings and another one under the center of the fuselage. In a statement, I guess from the New York Times, or that the New York Times acquired, the A-29 had an American on board, unclear if the aircraft flying alone or with an Afghan, according to those familiar with the crash. There's a couple of Twitter updates from the Afghanistan government. There is an unconfirmed video that appears an Mi-17 is at the crash site and rescuing the pilot. It seems like he was all right and just minimally injured, but Yeah, so this is interesting because right now there's an ongoing evaluation to see whether the A-29 will be the U.S. Air Force's next light attack aircraft in competition with the T-6 in an attack role. So we'll see. Mechanical failures are pretty rare with this with the PT6 engine, but it's not unheard of, I suppose. So we'll have to see what comes out of this one and how it affects the U.S. acquiring this aircraft.
So Nev, moving on to the last story for you, and we're back with the Royal Air Force for this one.
Yes, you remember that all the controversy about the Prime Minister's RAF Voyager being resprayed the other week. Well, it's actually been put into proper use in the last week or so. It's on the forces.net website, and it says that the resprayed RAF Voyager used to transport the Prime Minister and the royal family has been called out to support military aircraft in Scotland, the MOD has said. A week after returning to the skies after being painted with Union flag, the aircraft joined the QRA, Quick Reaction Alert, with fighter jets from RAF Lossiemouth. An MOD spokesman said the plane was deployed as Russian aircraft approached UK airspace. No interception was required during the operation, and the Voyager made a return to its base at RAF Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire. Typhoon fighters from RAF Lossiemouth were scrambled today in response to Russian military aircraft approaching the UK. However, the aircraft did not enter our area of interest, and no intercept was made, an RAF spokesman said. The RAF Voyager was launched to conduct air-to-air refuelling during the mission, the RAF said, and the Voyagers are also used to transport personnel or freight. The aircraft itself recently underwent a makeover worth around £900,000 in Cambridgeshire. In fact, I just missed it because it went out the week before I was up there filming. It saw the aircraft transform from grey to bright white with the Union Jack flag along its tail. The move was condemned by opposition politicians, with the SNP describing it as an utterly unacceptable use of public funds. Quite ironic that it was around the RAF Lossiemouth area at the time. Downing Street argued that the makeover represented value for money.
Of all the 330 MRTTs they could have used for this particular mission, they picked this one.
Yes.
I love it. I love that they picked this one. This just really puts an end to the argument of anybody that is a naysayer about this aircraft. It is still an operational aircraft.
On purpose. Is that possible?
It's great. Can you imagine being a Typhoon and refueling behind your country's flagship aircraft? So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great to see it in use. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, I mean, I suppose the only negative thing you could say is it's not exactly inconspicuous, shall we say?
I don't think an A330 in any paint scheme is inconspicuous.
No, fair point. Yeah, okay, but it's just great use, isn't it? Just great to see it. You know, I love it. I love it. I could watch it all day.
Oh gosh, there's so many things right with this story. I mean, seeing the refueling drogues coming out of your flagship aircraft. Oh, I just think it's so cool. Very cool.
Agreed. 100% agree.
I still think that's a tale from a BA aircraft when you look at that. Just to make Nev smile.
Or maybe a BA 146 actually.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes. Okay. So we've got lots of things to talk about actually that are coming up next week. But perhaps you wouldn't mind just whizzing through the competition details again, please, Carlos.
Yes, don't forget that all-important competition. You could have the chance of being drawn from the hat and winning that £150 voucher to spend at the Plane Reclaimers website on their shops. You could buy parts of 747s, 777s, 757s, A320s, you name it. You can buy bits from all of them. So all we want you to do is just send us in some feedback, something we can play out on the show or read out on the show with the theme of aviation in my life. So any feedback, written or audio, visual, will do, you can be entered into that draw to win that voucher, which was kindly donated by Andrew Keegan from the Plane Reclaimers, who we had on back in episode 324. So you can send that in via WhatsApp if you want to, for our WhatsApp number. You can send it into the show via email. Voice feedback.
Voice note. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so don't forget that WhatsApp number, +44 757 22 49166, or you can email it into the show, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. You can send us a file in there. But we'd love to hear that. And then what we'll do is we'll draw that out in August. I think we're doing that in August, aren't we?
I think so, yeah. Episode 330 anyway, whenever that falls.
Yeah, episode 330. So get those bits and pieces in to us to be with a chance of winning that.
So another 4
voucher.
weeks to go, basically. Another 4 weeks to go. Now, next week we have some exciting news, and I'm gonna pass this one on over. Now, do you know what? I mean, we've got a little WhatsApp group chat that we all talk about, and when our guests were announced in our group chat, I witnessed a reaction which I didn't think was possible from an ex-military man, I have to be honest. So, Armando, I think because of that, I'm going to throw this over to you. So I would like you, please, to let everyone know who is joining us next week.
Oh, ex-military. We are just people. You know, we still have emotions.
No, you don't. No, you're all dead inside, aren't you? Isn't that how that works?
Oh, boy. Thumbs up from Nev. So listen, everybody that's listening to this show, right, and we're going to have something like 10,000 downloads this week. Get your hashtags ready. Get your mentions ready. Next week, we're going to have 2 guests, and it may not be the regular show with the standard stories and commercial and military, because we haven't figured out how we're going to run this quite yet. So the first guest we're going to have is Sean Van Hatten, otherwise known as the husband of one Miss Jody Ruger, which we had on the show last year. Sean is a test pilot. He's a flight instructor. He's an aerobatic performer. Last week, he was the pilot at the controls for the first flight of the Stratus 716 light jet. So it's a brand new aircraft, first flight. It's a 6-seat aircraft aimed to compete with the Cirrus Vision, with that Cessna Citation crowd. But he's going to talk to us about test pilot school and about the planning that goes into basically the first flight of an innovative airframe.
Armando, in the chat room here, somebody's just said, Stephen H. has said, is our second guest Graham Norton?
No, better. So, second guest next week. Not sure how long we're going to have her. Hopefully 45 minutes or more, according to her publicist. But Ariel Tweedo, daughter of Jim Inferno Tweedo, perhaps from the wildly popular Discovery Channel TV show Flying Wild Alaska. She's going to join us for the show. She's going to talk about flying in Alaska, filming and producing the TV show, her own journey to become a pilot, and her life after the show, which she moved to LA and became a television producer promoting Native American filmmaking. And she continues to be involved in her family's business up in Alaska. So I am super excited to have these 2 guests on next week. It's going to be a great show. Make sure you hashtag. I don't even know what our hashtag is, but hashtag it away. Make sure everybody's watching on YouTube and getting ready to listen.
So yeah, guys, we need your help with this one because we want to make this as big a show as we possibly can. So if you could all do us a huge favour, what we'll do is we'll get, now that we've announced it on the show, on Sunday, we'll make sure that there is a tweet that is released by Plane Talking UK on Facebook and Twitter. And if you could share the heck out of it, we'd be eternally grateful, because massive aviation fans will know this is a huge deal. This is a really huge deal, and we're super excited that both guests are joining us. So it's going to be one epic show next week, and if it's not one to be missed, and if you can't make it live, you need to catch up. It's going to be a damn good show. Obviously, usual rules apply. So if you want to get in touch and you've got some questions that you want to ask, the usual channels will be open for you to do that. Why not go a little bit crazy? Send us some audio feedback and we can play it to our guests. So go nuts. It's podcast@planetalkinguk.com, and of course the WhatsApp number, which you can also do a voice note, +44 757 22 49166. That's +44 757 22 49166. Genuinely, I've never seen Armando so excited. I don't know what's the matter with him. He's like a kid in a sweet shop.
A little bit. You know, when we have somebody that's been on David Letterman and the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, I think she was on 16 times on the Late Show. So a genuine Hollywood star and an aviation family legend. So very cool.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
So that was next week. So make sure you set your reminders. And if you do follow us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe so you get that notification when we go live. And don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms, on Twitter at Plain Talking UK. And also on Instagram.
I'm sorry. I know you're in your flow there. I'm gonna interrupt you there. But Dr. Steph has just
must be the chat room.
Yeah, it is the chat room. It's we've got a suggested hashtag for next week's show from Dr. Steph. It's hashtag PTUK will be longer than APG. There you are.
Hashtag not possible.
Quite, absolutely. Anyway, sorry, Carlos, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Do carry on.
That's fine. Where'd I get to? Instagram. Follow us on Instagram as well, Plain Talking UK. Don't forget that all-important email address, podcast@plaintalkinguk.com, to send in your aviation inspiration thoughts for our piece of feedback for you to send in to win that voucher. And also, don't forget, you can obviously send us in that as well via our WhatsApp number. Again, that +44 757 22 And also, if you're going to do your shopping, which I've absolutely used the heck out of our link this week. It'll be pleased to know, Matt. If you're doing your shopping through Amazon, you can go to our website where you'll find the links to the Amazon page where you can do your shopping through. It doesn't cost you anything, but helps us with a little referral fee every now and again. And there's also the links on our website for the store. If you haven't already got yourself a PTUK t-shirt, we have got some new ones coming soon, which are being delivered hopefully next week. Some PTUK t-shirts, so get on there and you can purchase yourself a t-shirt. And also as well on the website you'll find links to Patreon and PayPal if you fancy becoming a helper and a donator to the show to help us push things along and get these awesome guests on the show.
Absolutely. I'm going to need everybody's help, actually, because I think if we've got two high-profile guests like we've got next week, I need to get this new website finished, don't I? Because it's been yes, absolutely. Okay, leave it with me.
So that is where we are unfortunately going to bring episode number 300 and up the top here. 326 to a close.
So, Nev, you're off to Scotland next week?
Yes, I'm going to miss the show next week. All this excitement.
Oh, mate. That's rubbish. Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed. Yeah, you'll have to watch it.
I'm very much looking forward to going away.
Yeah, I bet. I can
with Mrs. Nev and just having a breakaway for a week, which would be nice. So we're back the following Sunday. So
be interesting to. I look forward to hearing sort of how you found things, obviously, because things are going to be very different, aren't they? Like to what we're used to. Things being open.
A Nev's dining experience or a Nev's hotel experience. That'll be
absolutely
memorable, won't it?
Mate, I mean, after next week's show, we're going to be desperate for content again, so you knock yourself out.
Well,
absolutely fantastic. Now, Carlos, I don't know if you said this much publicly, but Carlos has done some severe damage to his leg / knee / ankle, and some of the colours that have been shared with us. Sometimes you're very lucky not to be part of our WhatsApp group. I'll be honest. I mean, so you're still at work though, aren't you? And you probably shouldn't be, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I made a silly decision to go back to work after having an accident at work, which means my foot is now various shades of purple and black.
He's not going to show you because it's not suitable for this time
It's not
of day.
good.
No.
It's not good.
Absolutely.
But,
so
it's safe to say
you've got a full
Gemma's
schedule.
looking after me.
Well, of course she is. Absolutely. You got a full schedule next week.
I have, got a full schedule next week. We're back to full pelt now for the company I work for. Hello to Stuart as well, because I know Stuart watches the show. We're back to full pelt and lots of work coming in, so that's good. That's good.
Excellent
we like that.
news. Excellent news. Now, Armando, you're doing the flying at the weekends with the parachute jumpers, but have you got any other sort of like commercial stuff to do?
Not a lot. I've only got 2 days of actual money-making flying next week. And so I've got 2 flying days for work. Next Sunday, like a couple days from now, I'll be doing skydivers. And other than that, we're taking a family camping trip to an undisclosed location in the eastern North Carolina.
Right. So, top secret.
Other than that, I just got some time.
Yeah, top secret. Can't possibly tell anyone. All the fans will turn up, desperate to catch up with you and your lovely family.
We'll do a crew log.
Yeah.
Actually, just quickly, before we finish, and I think Armando may have seen this. I know Nev has seen it. I actually watched this week on Amazon Prime the 7500 film.
Oh yes,
and you got to watch it. You got to watch it, and yeah, actually, I agree with what most people are saying, that it's quite accurate. Actually, the aviation side of that film is really quite accurate. The ending was a bit abrupt in my view, but Nev, I think you've watched this film as well, haven't you?
I didn't watch it, but Mrs. Nev watched it.
Yeah.
She did say how good it was. And so, unbelievably, she's actually watched something to do with aviation. But the realism...
By accident, surely.
For a change, seemed to be very good from what I hear. So I ought to watch it.
Well, they get a realism point just for in the actual movie promotion. It says in the cockpit of an Airbus A319. Like the fact that they just spelled that in the just production thing.
Good
it's pretty
start.
cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes you feel very confident. Right, that's it, guys. It's time to wrap up. Thank you very much for joining us as always. As I say, super show to look forward to next week. We're going to miss you, Nev. I'm sorry you're not going to be here for this. Well, as I say, you could get a high-profile guest. Nev mobs off to Scotland on holiday, honestly.
But I shall be doing. We're going to rerun a interview that I did with the general manager of the ATC facility in Gibraltar, which I did about 18 months ago. We've got some new listeners and new viewers, so people that may not have seen that. So I'm going to do a quick re-edit of some of that.
Cool.
And perhaps in a couple of weeks' time, we shall rerun that as well, which was
Sounds
pretty
exciting.
Well.
So a big thanks to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening, all the usual family members in there. Big thanks as well to everyone who downloads the show as an audio podcast.
Carlos, somebody just bought a T-shirt.
Okay, thank you. They've not arrived yet, but you will get it soon. Don't worry.
It's not that exciting. We sell hundreds of them every week, right, Matt?
Yes, of course. My apologies. Sorry. I may have given a little... I'll shut up now. Carry on, Carlos.
We'll get that off to you as soon as the new ones come in, but they are nice, shiny, new, brand new T-shirts. Yeah. So, yes, thanks to everyone who listens to the show, and have a great weekend and stay safe. And from me, Carlos, here in my home studio, from Matt in the PTUK studios, from Nev over in the NevTech studios, and from Armando across in his Charlotte studio. Have a great weekend. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Great weekend.